You asked me about other things in other advances in genetics, and I'd have to say, of course, chromosomes is only one part of it, and for my purposes, that I was also counselling children and parents and families with other genetic disorders, a wide range of genetics disorders at my clinic. We developed slowly over 2 or 3 years, developed a service for all of the west of Scotland, and this was a population of about 5 million. And so we formed the West of Scotland Regional Genetics Service. So that was the basis of the genetics program for that part of the world. And this was one of the earliest regional service groups. So while we were there, of course, the opportunities developed, and it was possible to make the diagnosis of chromosome abnormalities and other genetic disorders from 1967-68 onwards, from samples of the amniotic fluid in pregnant women, so that we were able to make the diagnosis in some of these conditions, severe genetic conditions, in the fetus. And this gave parents who wanted this the opportunity of interrupting their pregnancy and trying at a later time to have another one. So my wife had joined me at that time, and we were by several years before that actually, to work in cytogenetics. And she got involved in doing this prenatal, in developing this prenatal work with amniotic fluid cell cultures. And we were able to collect a number of diagnoses, in fact 70 I think as I recall, diagnoses of women who had wanted their pregnancies tested. And some of these women came from Ireland and some of these women were in Scotland. But the result was that in the majority of cases we were able to reassure these women that they were carrying a normal fetus. And I think out of the 70, only one individual had, one pregnancy was affected with Down syndrome, and that was the only, there was another genetic condition that was terminated as well, but there were only two pregnancies that had to be stopped. And so that the general benefit was that women were encouraged to have pregnancies, whereas they wouldn't have had these pregnancies had they known that there was no test. So we felt that there was a lot of criticism about what we were doing. My wife and I were accused of being Nazis by the Archbishop of the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Glasgow, and various other people were very much against what we were doing. It's particularly ironic because my wife spent part of her career in a concentration camp in Germany, and so she knew what the Nazis did, and perhaps rather better than the Archbishop did. And she didn't like being told that she was behaving like a Nazi, because she was providing a service for people who genuinely had a big problem, and we could help them with. So one of the other difficulties I had, if you like, was to try and convince the Archbishop and various other people that what we were doing was needed and was the right thing, was in fact was part of pastoral care, which they should have been providing, but I never was able to persuade the Archbishop, I have to say, nor the Pope or anybody else in the Roman Catholic hierarchy. But they didn't stop us. I was convinced by the needs of parents, and I didn't approve of abortion for social reasons, but I certainly was sympathetic to women who had these very big problems with having severely handicapped children. And that's what's happened. And of course, when prenatal came into the business, when we were able to give prenatal diagnosis, and my wife's paper on this subject was the first published in the United Kingdom, when we were able to provide this service, it increased the amount of genetic counselling that was done throughout the country. And suddenly, as there was something, genetic counselling could achieve something through testing pregnancies. So suddenly genetic counselling became very much more important than it had been, and genetic clinics were enlarged.